Good morning. Welcome to Pricing Strategy. I'm going to give this just a second to get everybody loaded. Hi, Annie. See lots of familiar people. Stephanie. Hi, Zeta. Hello. I hope everybody is staying inside and cool today. I'm trying not to do any more walking outside if I don't have to. All right, let's jump into pricing strategy. I am, for those of you that I've not gotten to meet yet, I am Gina Woodward. I'm the Regional Director for the Small Business Development Center at West Texas A&M. And in just a second, I will introduce you to the rest of our staff. You may see popping up in chat today the name Michelle Howington. She is also with the SBDC. If you've got any questions at any time, you are welcome to post those in chat and Michelle will be online to reply. There we go. So just a little bit about who we are and what we do, just so you understand who you're talking to. So the Small Business Development Center and the West Texas A&M Enterprise Center, which is our sister department and co-host today, are both departments of the College of Business at WT. We're really the economic development arm of West Texas A&M University. Although obviously the university is primarily working on academics, our two departments are not solely focused on academics. We'll gladly work with students, but most of what we do is work with small business owners and entrepreneurs across the Panhandle who want to start or expand a business. And then the SBDC in particular, that's where I am at today and work for the SBDC. We are partially funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. So that's one of the reasons why this webinar today is free. The SBA has kind of paid for it. So if you ever feel like your taxes don't go anywhere, just know that at least you did get a free webinar out of it. So what in particular does the SBDC and the Enterprise Center do? It's a hodgepodge of services for those small businesses. Our service area is the Texas Panhandle. At the SBDC, we focus on consulting, training, and research. And then on the flip side, at the Enterprise Center, they're focused on coaching. They have an incubator and co-working. And one of the questions that I get most often is, what's the difference in consulting and coaching? The consulting that you get at the SBDC tends to be more focused on technical issues. If you need help getting your books set up, you need to write a business plan, you've got QuickBooks questions, you need to do cash flow projections, those really quick technical kind of things, those are where you're going to come to the SBDC. If you're looking for more of a long-term relationship where you have that one coach who's helping you set goals and keep you accountable, that would fall under coaching, and that's going to be the Enterprise Center. Again, thanks to your tax dollars, the consulting at the Small Business Development Center is paid for. We just work with a lot more clients, obviously, because it's free. Just to give you an example, last year we worked with about 800 clients and our office is very small. We have 2 consultants. So you can imagine that the work they do, it is that pretty quick stuff. We're going to get it taken care of and then you're out the door and hopefully successful. At the Enterprise Center, we've got 1 coach right now. We'll be adding 1 or 2 more, and they're just able to have that more long-term relationship with you. So it's never an either or kind of a choice. We absolutely work together to help our businesses across the Panhandle. All right, and where do we work with you? Just in case you have not been to our offices, that first picture is the Small Business Development Center. That's where I'm at today in pretty beautiful downtown Amarillo. The sky does look a little bit dusty, but that's pretty normal for us. The second picture is the Enterprise Center on Northwestern, just a couple of minutes away from us. That's where they do the coaching, and then they've also got the incubator and some co-working space. And then additional co-working space that we have about a block away, I can see it right out my window right now, is Revolution at 800. That is a co-working facility that's managed by the Enterprise Center, where they've got open space, private offices, and then smaller dedicated desks. All right, and who are we? The first one, obviously, you've already met me, and then Anna and Shane are the 2 consultants that I mentioned a bit ago at the SBDC. Michelle is the one behind the scenes pushing the buttons today and making sure that everything works. And then over at the Enterprise Center, Brian Enevoldsen is the program manager and the current coach. Tanika's the one who keeps the office running, and then Zeta's across the street from me right now. She's the one who keeps Revolution running. And then our newest full-time employee, Chris Layton, is our client coordinator. So if you ever call the Enterprise Center with questions, you will probably get to talk to Chris. All right, and then what are we going to do today? Just a quick agenda. I want to talk to you a little bit about why you should think about raising prices, how you should do it, when you should do it, and we will absolutely leave time for Q&A. If you have questions as I go, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in the chat, and I'll go through afterwards. And then at the end, I will review those, or you're welcome to unmute yourself as well. And get my buttons to work. There we go. So first, let's talk about why you should raise prices. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that we're all probably in the same boat and the victims of this incredible inflation that we have not seen the likes of in many, many decades. So it's not a why you should raise prices. It's a let's get this done. And I think that's why we're all on today. So the first thing that I want you to see is really why you should raise prices as opposed to decreasing expenses. When I get clients here in my office, that's usually the first thing that they want to talk about if they're struggling with finances, which, let's face it, pretty much everybody is right now. Their first course of action typically is to try to decrease expenses. They're usually afraid to lower prices because they feel like they're going to lose customers. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I think there are some ways that you can do it where you won't lose customers and you can actually increase revenue. But I want you to see why I'm telling you, as opposed to decreasing expenses, why I would much rather you raise prices. So here's a sample company right here that I've called Panhandle Pastries. We're just assuming this is somebody maybe doing some baking out of her house. I've kept it as simple as I can. She's selling some cookies and some cupcakes. In 2019, before we had this inflation, her revenue was $8,000. Her expenses were $5,500. She had a final net profit of $2,500. Not too bad for doing some baking from home. Next picture is what her business probably looks like in 2022. If any of you have done any kind of baking, we've all bought food. I think these numbers are unfortunately pretty realistic. I'm assuming that her sales are probably the same, but her expenses have gone up a great deal. Her flour and sugar has gone up 20%. The price of eggs has doubled. If you've bought eggs in the last few weeks, that's probably generous. They've more like tripled. And her butter has doubled as well, which really is realistic. And you can see that the effect that that's had on her final net profit. She has gone from $2,500 left over to now $200 in her pocketbook, which certainly does not, I don't think it's worth all the time that she's probably spent making those cookies and cupcakes. So I want to show you what's the difference in raising that price or lowering your expenses. So first, let's assume that she tries to decrease her expenses by 10%. You can see that that's put a little bit of money back in her pocketbook. She's now got $980 left when she had $200 before. Not enough to live off of, but okay, we've bumped that up some. But again, one of the things that I want you to think about when you're talking about lowering expenses, wouldn't we all love to lower our grocery bill right now? That's pretty well impossible. So if you do find ways to lower expenses, you're probably buying ingredients that are much, much lower quality than what you had before. And it's ultimately going to affect the quality of your final product and probably drive down sales. And I know some of you on here, especially you, Annie, you've popped up for me. I'm sure you're dealing with that exact same thing with your ingredients. So let's look at what does the business look like if instead of trying to lower expenses, she actually raises prices. So look at that final net profit. That always surprises my clients when they come in, when I try to explain that even though we're looking at 10% decrease compared to 10% increase, it actually hits your pocketbook differently. When you raise prices, that money goes straight to your wallet. You get to keep that. So I realized that in this particular example, the difference is only $20. It's not going to make or break her. But imagine if this was on a much larger scale and her revenue was more than $8,000. That $20 here or there can add up very, very quickly. All right, so let's talk about if if we want to try to get her back to that 2019 number, what does that look like? How much do we have to either decrease expenses or increase our price? To get her back to, remember, her net was, I think, 2,500 in 2019. If we want to get her back close to that, and we're just relying on decreasing expenses, we have to cut those about 30%. If I could cut my grocery bill 30%, I would have already done that. I think that's probably impossible. So on the flip side, if we want to get her back to that original net, how much would we have to increase the price of the product? If we increase it 30%, look at it now, she's got even more left. She's got $2,600 when before she actually started with 25. And after we wrap up today, you're going to get an email from Michelle. I've put together just a really simple Excel worksheet for you where you can take figures just like this. We'll take your revenue and your expenses. You can break it down, or you can just look at it in a whole chunk. And you're going to be able to play with that and see, what does it look like if I decrease my expenses 15%? What does it look like if I increase my price 30%? And you will be able to come up with that net profit figure on your own and figure out what you're comfortable with. How much do you need to increase that price to get to where you're really making a living wage for the work that you're doing? All right, so the next thing that we need to talk about is how you should raise your prices. I want you to be able to raise your prices and feel confident about it and know that hopefully you won't lose a great deal of customers. Is it possible that you'll raise prices and lose some customers? Absolutely. But if we go back to that 2022 example where she had, I think, $200 net profit left over, if you don't raise prices, you're basically paying to have clients, and I don't want to see any of you in that position. So first, don't ever feel guilty about raising prices. It's something you have to do. Nobody has apologized to me at the gas pump for raising prices, so you do the same. You got to have the same mindset. So there's 8 different things that I want you to think about. Y'all should have an email from Michelle that she sent a little bit ago that's actually got a worksheet where you can make some notes and follow along with this. And I think she's posted it in chat as well. And then it'll also be in that follow-up email. But the 8 things that I want to touch on to keep in mind when you're raising prices that I think will hopefully help you feel more confident and help you keep your customers. The first one is just to go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid. And I think if you're going to do a price increase, do it all at once. I've seen some businesses that try to inch it up little by little, and that just aggravates me so much. And when I give that example with clients, there's always one company that everybody thinks of, and it's probably the one that you're all thinking of, bless them, Netflix. They've actually, I looked up their information a couple of days ago, and they've actually raised their price 6 times, like in the last 5 years, something like that. I have Netflix, and I couldn't even tell you what I was paying 5 years ago and what I'm paying now. I really don't know. All I know is that they keep raising prices, and that makes me mad. So that's why I say just rip the Band-Aid off, do it all at once, and that way you don't have to keep aggravating your customers over and over. Next thing that you can think about is what kind of add-on could you have if you're going to have to raise prices? Is there an add-on that you've already got in place, something that's really cheap, but it provides value to the customer? And so in their mind, even though they're paying more, they're still getting a lot of value from you. So I'll tell you a quick story. A couple of years ago, I had a total lapse in judgment at Christmas time, and I decided that it would be fun to make gingerbread at home and sell those because everybody likes to bake. Well, spoiler alert, when you do things for profit that you previously enjoyed doing for fun, it is not quite as much fun. And so that business got shut down after about a month. But when I was selling gingerbread, I decided, obviously, everybody should have a 5-pound bucket of sprinkles, which I still have sitting in my pantry. But I did learn from that experience that sprinkles are actually really cheap. So just imagine that you have that bakery or you're selling donuts, something like that. Go out and spend $20 and get that ridiculous 5-pound bucket of sprinkles. Add some sprinkles on your donut. If you're going to raise the price, I will gladly pay an extra 10 cents or whatever it is for those sprinkles, and it probably costs you a fraction of a penny to do. All right, one of my other favorite things when I'm working with clients on pricing, and this doesn't even have anything to do with inflation necessarily, this is just one of my favorite things, my favorite ways to price things is to actually use packages and bundles instead of pricing things individually. When you're in a situation where you have to raise prices, it's so much easier to do it when it's in a bundle, because I, as the consumer, am not picking that package apart. So for example, the graphic that I have on here, imagine that you're selling the hamburger and the drink and the donut. If you have those things on your menu individually, maybe you're selling a hamburger for $4, a drink for $2, and a donut for $1. So we've got $7 of items right there. If instead of doing that, you just offer to sell me a combo, I'd probably gladly pay $9 or $10 for that. I'm not mentally thinking, oh, am I paying $5 for a hamburger? Am I paying $6 for a hamburger? I'm just looking at the value of that package. And then one of the beautiful things about packages is if down the road you need to raise prices, instead of raising the price on that particular bundle with that same hamburger, drink, and donut, you just tweak it a little bit. And so that way you have a brand new bundle to sell. And I don't look at that like a price increase as a consumer. I look at that as a good thing for me. Oh, Annie has a new bundle of mustard and chips to sell, something like that. That's a good way to please your clients. You won't lose them. I personally like to recommend the packages for clients in general, just because it makes the decision process much easier. If I don't have to choose, do I want a hamburger with cheese? Do I want one with bacon? Do I want one with green chilies? I just want to see package 1, 2, and 3. I prefer odd numbered packages, and do keep in mind that most of your customers are going to pick, if you've got 3 packages, they're going to pick the second package. So make sure that that second package is where you're really packing all your products or services where you have the biggest return. If you offer 5 packages, most of them are going to pick either package 3 or 4. So again, make sure that you're putting everything in there as much as you can that's got those high profit margins on that. All right, number 4, price anchoring. So price anchoring is where you are essentially setting the customer's expectation of the actual value of that item, and then you get to discount it in their mind. So my house is full of things that I've bought because I've gone in a store and they said that, you know, the original price of this TV was $2,000. But guess what? Today it's heavily discounted and we're going to let you buy it for $500. I know deep down that that TV is probably only worth $500, but it works even on me. They convinced me that, you know, that TV was worth $2,000 and I would be an absolute fool to pass it up and not buy it for $500. You can do the exact same thing. Oh, and one other thing that I want to mention on there. So this works for both products and services. So if you have a service, you can absolutely set that value at the, you know, $1,000. Maybe you have $1,000 of plumbing services and you're going to discount it to, you know, $800. And you really could even use your price anchoring and package together, especially with a service. I'm going to sell you $1,000 of plumbing, but if you buy this package for $800, you're going to get a much better deal. It's all in how you frame it. So another thing that as small business owners, you're really lucky to be able to rely on is your story. I can promise you that Netflix is probably going to raise prices again at some point, and they could tell me some story about why they want to do it, but I don't care. It's probably just going to make me angry again. But if one of you as a small business owner needs to raise the price on your product or service, tell me that story, and it's going to make such a huge difference. Tell me about how when I pay an extra 50 cents for your product, it's going to help you sign your child up for Little League games. Tell me about how if I pay an extra 50 cents, that helps you keep this employee employed, and give me her name. Tell me her story. Don't ever feel guilty about relying on using that story. It's something that us as consumers, we genuinely want to hear, and it makes a big difference. Competition, hopefully all of you are already doing that, but be sure that you're checking out your competition when you're thinking about doing a price increase. And absolutely do not be scared if you see that your competition has not raised prices yet. So let's go back to that bakery example where in 2022, her net profit is $200, not even enough to keep going. You can probably assume that her competition's net is about the same. You assume that $200. If they don't raise prices and they want to keep going and charging those current rates, I promise you, eventually they are going to go out of business. The business is not sustainable. So don't feel guilty about raising your prices, even if your competition hasn't done it already. Just scope out the market and know that eventually I think you're a step ahead if you raise your prices before then, because you'll be able to outlast them. Button to work. There we go. I mentioned this just a little bit earlier, but don't ever apologize for raising prices. And I say that not just for you, because it's truly not something that you should apologize for doing. You have to do it. But when you apologize, as the consumer, what I'm hearing from you is that you're doing something wrong and that you feel guilty about it and you shouldn't really be doing it. And I start thinking, oh, well, maybe I should look elsewhere for something cheaper. Don't ever apologize for that. You are the boss. Be confident when you do that and say, you know what? Prices are going up 50 cents because I need to keep paying my employees. You kind of, just like we talked about with price anchoring, where you get to set that expectation in the consumer's mind. Another reason why you don't apologize. You set the expectation, this product is worth this much and you're going to pay for it. It's kind of like being a parent. If your kid doesn't like what you cooked for dinner, I can only speak for myself. I sure don't apologize for it. I tell him, too bad, you eat it or you get to go hungry. And you kind of have to have that same mindset when you're raising prices. If they're not willing to pay that price, and if you don't raise prices, you're going to be paying to keep them on as a client. So don't feel guilty and don't apologize when you do it. All right, last thing, number 8 is to be a unicorn. Try to specialize in something. I've had clients that have had a great deal of success when they take this route with their pricing. So for example, if you are let's say you're a bookkeeper, you could probably do books for any kind of business, but if you will specialize in doing books for maybe medical offices, when a medical office comes across you, they will typically be willing to pay more for your service because it's specialized. They feel like they're going to get extra service. You know their industry better. You can use this same example with any kind of product or service. If you're that plumber that we talked about, maybe you specialize in plumbing in, I don't know, really old houses, something like that. If I have that really old house and I'm looking for a plumber who knows how to do that work, I will pay more for that all day, every day, because I know that you're going to do the job right. And I'm not going to have to call somebody back in to fix up that mess. All right, we're almost done, y'all. We got time for Q&A. All right, so real quick, we need to talk about when you should raise prices. And it's going to be really quick because I think there's one answer for all of us, and that answer is absolutely now. The longer you wait, going back to that $200 in net profit, you're just going to have to try to keep living off that $200. Do it now. Don't feel guilty about it. You may lose some clients out of it. Netflix probably loses a few clients every time they raise prices. They haven't left me because I'm still around complaining about it. You'll be in the same boat. You're not going to lose everybody. Don't worry. All right, let's do some Q&A. You guys are welcome. Y'all welcome to unmute yourselves if you want. And then I'm going to check the chat box. Thank you, Michelle, for posting that link. Oh, and there may be an error on it. We'll get that fixed and we'll make sure that it's in the follow-up email as well. All right, I really appreciate everybody getting on today. I know you're probably hungry and ready for lunch. You'll be getting an email in just a little bit from Michelle. So it'll have that, the PDF handout, and then it will have the Excel spreadsheet that I mentioned. And that's what's going to let you play with your revenue and your expenses and find a happy medium where you can increase prices enough and have enough cash left in your pocketbook to make it worthwhile. And then I believe she's also recording today, so you'll be getting a copy of the webinar.